During the following program, look for the Maine PBS web markers, which indicate there is in-depth information about Maine authors and their books on our website.
Coming up, we'll meet Maine's Renaissance woman, Constance Hunting, poet, publisher, professor, and pianist of Orono and the University of Maine.
Production of A Good Read on Maine PBS is made possible in part by the Davis Family Foundation.
New England. Stones are the sheep of these hillsides, and fog is the wool of these stones.
Hi, I'm Sandy Phippen. Even before I met Constance Hunting, poet and publisher, I had been reviewing and writing for her magazine, Puckerbrush Review. When I finally rang her Orono doorbell and asked if she'd see me, she welcomed me out into her kitchen for a beer. I've been in that kitchen now many times, along with many other writers from Maine and international. We all gather around Connie because she's the best editor we've ever had, and wonderful company, and a lovely poet. Connie started her artistic career, however, as a pianist, and her poetry is filled with music.
New England. Stones are the sheep of these hillsides, and fog is the wool of these stones.
Do you begin every day by playing the piano?
Not every day. Most days.
What do you play?
I play Schubert. I play Beethoven. I play Schumann.
Chopin?
A little. It's not that I don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
It's that right now I'm in that other series of composers.
Uh-huh. So it depends, too, also on what you're writing at the time?
Now, that's a very good question. Possibly.
Your writing has been called...
I'll be conscious of that now.
Your writing has been called musical.
Yes, I'm not surprised in a way, because I started out as a pianist.
That's right.
And when you start that young, I guess, as with everything else in my life, I started when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
The phrasing and the harmonies and harmonics,
Sure.
You take in very naturally. And so I guess it re-emerges with the pattern of the words.
How long did you study the piano?
Well, I took lessons until I was about 23.
And you were accepted at Juilliard?
Yes,
But you didn't go?
but I didn't go.
You were at Brown University
Yes,
then?
right, yeah.
Now, when you were at Brown, your senior year, you told me about getting some awards.
Oh, yes, I got first prize in music and in literature, literary criticism,
Literary criticism.
and in Latin.
And in Latin. Wow.
Mhm. So Latin's been a great aid in a way, not in a dull way, but it taught me about our language so much. That and French.
Okay. And the literary criticism you're still doing.
Yes.
Now, at Brown, you not only received awards, you also received a husband.
This is true. We met in the 17th century poetry course.
And he was a graduate student?
He was a graduate student and I was a sophomore.
And
because I was allowed to take graduate courses.
Okay. And you were married, ultimately?
After university, yes.
Right. And when you got married, I believe you told him. You had an
I
agreement.
did. Before we married, I said that my writing is extremely important to me and I intend to continue.
And so his first job was down south? You went
Yes,
to Duke?
we went to Duke.
Yes. And
We stayed there for 3 years. We had a little house in the country, 3 rooms and a path.
after Duke, I'm piecing this together now, you went to Purdue.
Yes, right. And
Rob
we
got
were
a
there
job
a long
there.
while. We were there 16 years.
Lafayette.
Excellent
Indiana.
place to do your work
Mhm.
because there is no ocean to distract you, no Katahdins,
Right.
very pleasant people.
Mm-hmm. And you became Poet Laureate of Indiana.
Yes, I did.
How?
Well, it was simple, really. There was a contest,
And you entered.
and I entered, and I didn't have to send in a box top. I had to send in about 15 poems.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some very good poets in Indiana then, and so I happened to win it.
And also, I think just as you left Indiana, this is when the first book came out, which is after the Stravinsky concert.
Yes, that came out in 1969. It was contracted for in 1968, which was the year we left Indiana.
Right. That's right. And then it came out really here when you were in Maine, basically.
Yes, that's right, the first year we were in Maine.
The title poem, After the Stravinsky Concert, could you, it's a long poem, so I'm not going to ask you to read it, but I do want you to talk about it. You know, what occasioned that? Why the title?
When I was growing up, I was born in Providence, by the way, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was growing up, of course, I was taking these piano lessons and going to the Boston Symphonies, which came down, I think, once or twice a month to Providence to play. Or we were going to Boston to the concerts there. And when I was in college, I think, I went to an all Stravinsky concert, and this was my first exposure to a lot of Stravinsky. And I came out feeling, wow, he changed the world. After this concert, the world won't be the same.
Uh-huh. That's why the title.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Great. Okay. And also, this was published by Scribner's in
Yes.
New York. And William Carlos Williams took note of it, among other famous
Yes,
people.
he did. Well, he was the first.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. what a glorious beginning.
Well, when I started sending out my poems, the first place I sent poems to was Poetry Magazine in Chicago, because I'd heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they took all 3, one of which was after the Stravinsky concert.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, this is easy.
This happens for everybody this
Yes,
way.
that's how it happens.
Now, when you were at Indiana, you gave birth to 2 children.
I did. Of course, not all on my own steam. Sam was born in Lafayette, Indiana, and so was Miranda.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you moved to Maine when they were little.
No, we moved to Maine when they were teenagers. It was a very difficult move because they had all their friends there.
Right.
That was their home.
Mm-hmm.
They were good about it, but it was very difficult. We arrived actually in Orono on the day after Bobby Kennedy was shot.
In 1968.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you've been here ever since?
Ever since?
Okay, but you didn't start the press right then.
No.
And we got to put that story on, how you started.
1971.
Okay, now tell about how that whole thing began, how you thought you could start a press, and why you even thought of it to begin with.
I had some royalties from Scribner's.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I thought, I'll redecorate the house. But then I thought, I'll have to do that again. And I wanted, at some point, and I wanted something that would last. And I thought, I'll start a press.
And you did.
And I did. I didn't tell anybody for 6 days. For 6 days, I would wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to start a press.
Mm-hmm. And here it's still
And it's still going.
going on 30 years now,
Mhm.
basically. And then out of the press grew the Review. Bucket
That's
Bus
right.
Review, the literary magazine.
At that time, I was a member, and still am, of Maine Writers and Publishers. And at a meeting, I thought and said, there's no literary magazine in Maine. Maybe we could start one.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't interested. So I thought, little red hen,
Mm-hmm.
I'll start it.
You can do it, right. And you did do it.
Yes, the first issue was, I think, 35 pages. And now it's grown, and it's...
Oh, it's
The
100 and
first
some-
issue was all Maine,
Right.
and now it's a mix of literature from everywhere.
And it's now 140 pages.
Well, sometimes.
Yes, that's right. What is the value of owning your own press?
The value. You sound like the student.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry.
No.
I know you said something once about how the great thing is you can publish what you want.
Well, of course, that's the value. That's one value. It all sounds very egocentric, and I dare say it is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, one of the greatest pleasures is to publish writers for their first time.
Right. Launching
And
people.
Launching people, and it's always because I like their work. It's not particularly sympathy. It's because I like this and I want it.
Right.
And then they have something to take in their hand or to put on their resume when they want to go further.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
And this says, Carolyn Schutz's novel, The Beans, is to be published.
That's right.
So, you know, I saw her in Portland reading. I didn't know who she was. And there was so much energy in that reading. And I asked her later, you know, would you send me something? So this is what she sent.
Oh.
And when did you discover Merle Hillman?
First off,
Because you were looking for a printing company?
I was looking for a printing company. I went to 2 or 3. They didn't seem to be exactly what I wanted. And then I drove to Old Town, and the Penobscot Times.
Mm-hmm.
And Merle and I hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been my special printer ever since.
Ever since. That's why
And
I always-
Howland's, I've stayed with Howland's Printing.
all these
Where
years.
Merle works, yes.
Right,
They've
that's
been
right.
very good to me.
It's really wonderful. Now Maine, let's talk about Maine too,
All right,
first
let's
of all.
talk about Maine. Well, Maine is
Um,
first.
You moved to Maine, and certainly it was quite different from other places where you've lived and worked. And what are the great things
I
about
felt much freer here
Why?
because I could try things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it's the general smaller population
Mm-hmm.
or the separation of people. The writers in this state are widely separated geographically. We just don't drop in for coffee
No, that's
very
right.
often.
That's right.
I felt that I could try anything.
Right.
And if I failed, then I could try something else.
You can fail in Maine.
You can
You're
fail
the
in
second-
Maine, and
yeah.
no clique will jump on you that well, maybe 1 or 2, but that doesn't count.
No,
You
that's
just
right.
go ahead,
That is interesting.
and
about-
that's excellent.
It really is. And you also wrote, I think in your book, Experience as Art, you wrote about Maine being an alien place, and thus artists feeling comfortable here because it was alien.
They feel comfortable.
Yeah, because
Yes,
they're aliens
because they're
too.
alien too.
Right, that's right.
I'm very alien.
Well, you don't look so alien.
Well,
but-
thank you. But, you know, they do it well now. My parents are Canadian. All of my family is Canadian.
Right.
I am the first and only so far to be born in the United States.
Right. You were born in Providence.
I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. My parents were ultimately made citizens,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone else in the family lives in Ontario.
Uh-huh. Right. And you write about that. That's
Yes, I do. I
some-
write about my past.
Some of your best poems are about your
Remembering,
relatives.
remembering. Memory is a great source.
Besides musical, how would you? Well, people say all kinds of things about you if you look through the.
Do they? What do they
criticism.
say? And then I can tell you.
Well, they say that your poems are sophisticated and intellectual. They're talking especially about your long poems.
Yes.
Not so much the short
But when
ones.
you say intellectual, I think ideas. And what I want to do is make a little world with its story and its atmosphere
Right,
and its characters.
right.
Of course, in a way, every poem is a story. Every poem has a plot. Whether it's on the surface or underneath, there's a beginning and a middle and some sort of end.
Now, when
And
you,
I hope it does not end with a lesson.
Now, we should get to the titles of the books. I like the titles. Besides, after the Stravinsky concert, you have The Myth of Horizon.
Yes, because I feel it is a myth.
There isn't a horizon.
Well, you know how I am about borderlines and
That's right.
cutting things off,
It's
people off.
all mixed together, really. So it's a myth.
Actually, there should be a flow across borders.
The shape
You
of...
should hardly need a passport.
That's right. How about The Shape of Memory?
Well, I guess the shape of memory is the book. Because that's the shape my
That's-
memory takes.
Those are the memories.
Yes, that's right.
There they are. Dream cities.
Well, again, the title says it. They're not actual cities. They're invented cities, but people recognize them.
Right, and based on real cities.
Yes, definitely.
And then Between the Worlds.
Well, that's where I am a lot of the time.
Go on about that one a little bit, Between the Worlds.
I don't know how the title came, except that the poems seem to take on a similarity of tone, which is elegiac. I seem to find elegy very easy to do. In fact, I have to rein myself in, so not everything is elegiac. And beautiful, sometimes I use the phrase, I have to break the beauties, because people can go to sleep, you know.
Right, that's great. Break the beauties, that's great. NIGHTWALK.
NIGHTWALK is the title of a poem in that collection, which is set in Orono, in which I get up in the middle of the night.
In this house.
In this house, and walk through it.
It's a wonderful poem.
Thank you.
You call yourself the Lady Macbeth of Main Street
Yes.
in this poem, I remember that.
Madame Bovary of the block.
And you found yourself eating raw hamburger in the middle
Well, I
of the night.
do. Isn't that attractive?
Lovely image.
Of course, one doesn't do that now.
No, of course not. You have to be careful with hamburger. Do you have a philosophy
Oh, dear.
for your press and review?
I like to try to publish things that are original. That only that person could write.
Okay, all right.
It's not from the big general basket.
I suppose we should talk about the press a little bit more, about how it works here at this. You know, people mail in things to you all the time. One time I saw you come to my class with your mail.
I did, just
And
for fun.
And it was wonderful what you did with the kids, because you went through your mail. It's a publisher going through her mail.
That's what I do.
Right, and what you did was really educate the kids. That's what it's like. I mean, I remember that day you had a Navy guy, sailor, who wrote in about his dog. He had pictures of his dog and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it was outrageous.
I think probably I didn't accept that.
No, but and you said to him something, haven't you ever heard of Rin Tin Tin or Lassie or whatever? But I mean, you went through the mail and you were nice, basically.
Basically, I am. I don't want to kill anybody.
No.
And who knows? Who knows what they might come up with next?
I know.
So
But a lot of the people, I remember,
it's not suitable.
right, or they hadn't read. They didn't know, and they
Right.
thought their stuff was fresh and original when it wasn't.
No, you have to read.
Yes, you do have to read, that's right. Your parents both read to you, didn't
Yes, Robert Louis Stevenson, Treasure Island. That was a thrill. Blind Man Pew, I'll never forget.
they? Did your father read you those stories?
He read me the adventure stories, and my mother read the poetry. I suppose that's how it worked then.
Isn't that perfect?
But, I got Shakespeare from an early age.
That fits, though. That really does. It's wonderful.
But reading to a child is just, I think, necessary, really. It's like breathing.
Maybe we touched hands. And do you remember in the story what we talk about when we talk about love? How
Now, we haven't mentioned your teaching. You're a wonderful
Oh,
teacher.
yes. Well, I enjoy teaching.
You've
Who
taught-
wouldn't?
Right, and you've taught at the University of Maine quite a while now. You're a
I
full
have.
professor.
20 years.
That's right, and you teach poetry and
I teach creative writing, mainly.
Right.
And I teach at all levels.
If you notice, on page 124, at the bottom, maybe we were a little drunk by then. I know it was hard keeping things in focus. The light was draining out of the room, going back through the window where it had come from. Very nice. I bet you noticed that. I could hear the human noise we sat there making, not one of us moving, not even when the room went dark. Neat. You can do that. It's very subtle until you see it. And then you say, I could do that for the effect.
And you also, though, I mean, in your busy, busy life, you also take care of master's theses. And
Yes,
you're on
yes.
many,
Oversee those.
oversee many
Yes,
of them
yes,
per
many.
semester.
Yes, 7 or so.
And you serve
Usually.
on committees, and you're in everything. It's a
Well, it's a fairly full life, but you see how convenient it is. It's 10 minutes up the road.
That's true. Yes, you like living in downtown Orono.
I
don't
like it very much.
you? Because the bank is across the street.
Yes.
Post office is down the street.
I can walk everywhere.
Right, that's right.
The bus stops at my door, so it's very efficient.
You take the city bus.
Often.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that
Why?
because it's people, and
And you
I
always-
admire them because you realize after a while that everyone on that bus has a burden of some sort, and how well they do.
Right.
Or somebody will have a painting, they're going to the art department, somebody's underlining notes, with a yellow And sometimes they're just chatting about baseball. I just enjoy it.
And you find poetry all over the place.
Yes.
Right. You said once to your students, I remember this now, you said, listen.
Oh, yes, listen.
And look.
And look.
Right.
You see, a lot of their lives, it seems to me, are spent in avoiding these two necessary activities.
Right.
So that you say, they'll say, the trees are turning orange. And you'll say, what tree do you have in mind? And they don't quite know the names a lot of the time.
Right.
I wish I knew far more than I do about constellations, about plants. I'm learning about, you know, I usually take the wildflower book if I go to the woods, that sort of thing.
You haven't stopped learning.
Listen, I love to learn.
Right, right.
And Colette said, look, look.
What have we here?
Well, this is my art corner, if you like to call it that. And I enjoy collecting art books. I love to look at paintings or reproductions of paintings. So throughout the year, this sounds very disciplined, but actually it's pleasure. I change it.
And you love arrangements of everything.
Well, I do. I
Always
enjoy
arranging.
playing.
Like editing, isn't it?
Well, in a sense, yes, I suppose so.
And the connection.
But this is for pleasure. It's just for pleasure. Not that editing isn't a great pleasure, but it's different. It's work. This is nourishment on another level.
Connie, this is like the intermingling of the arts here. I mean, does this have direct connection on your work as a writer or an editor?
I think it does. I think that painting has a great effect on my work. I think it's the arrangement, again,
'Cause you like
of the
arrangements,
elements.
yes.
And if you look in certain paintings, well, say an exhibition of Constable, small landscapes, which I saw in New York, there's always a tiny touch of red. And you take that tiny touch of red out, and the painting just sort of dies. But you look for the red, and that's the arrangement. Where is he going to put it this time? So that, it's like a word which is rhymed or goes with a similar word down through the poem.
That's right, yes. So tell me about this painting, Connie. The
Well,
Bloomsbury painting.
The Bloomsbury painting. This is by Duncan Grant, a seminal painter of the time.
I like very much the work of Bloomsbury, particularly, of course, the writing, of Virginia Woolf, because of the quality of mind behind it. It's a daring quality, it's inventive, it's original. They began in the early part of the 20th century. It was a beautiful era. Everything was fresh, everything was new, and everything was inspired and daring. You could try anything.
In all the arts.
In
too.
all the arts, and in other areas like economics with Keynes. And then came the war.
Right.
And I don't think we've ever recovered that freshness. But by that time they had done enough work so that the art world was affected. And you couldn't paint in the old way. Of course you could if you wanted to. But there was a new way to see the world, to paint it, to write about it.
If you'll notice, there's a certain fluidity about this. The drapery, for example, the movement here. Then these are very homey objects.
Like the cigarettes.
They're not religious or historical.
Right.
This is the way people live, what was then now.
Right.
And they have the telephone, they have the postcard from a far place.
And the radio.
The radio, the sunglasses, the cigarettes, and this is the studio as it is now. There's the lamp, and there's the lamp. All that sort of thing is a great deal of fun because you realize these things are real.
That's right.
And they're not idea pictures so
And
much as they are
And they had created this aesthetic.
real. And they had created this aesthetic of flow.
So it was an explosive time.
And it was an exploratory time.
Right, right.
Again, you had the freedom to explore.
Airplanes were coming.
Yes,
too.
very good.
Airplanes also.
That's an excellent thought, aesthetically.
Right, that's right.
Imagine.
Man is flying.
Yes. All over the sky.
Right. And looking into himself.
So here we have this linear train whistle coming along.
Yes, we do. That's perfect. That's great.
This horizontal
The
train
Industrial
whistle.
Revolution, the trains and planes.
But the planes are
And
zooming
cars,
about.
too. I mean, cars had been around a little bit earlier, but cars were coming in, too. About the
Very
same
much
time.
so.
All of this is reflected in the art and in the literature.
Yes, it is, because artists and art are greedy.
Sure.
They'll try anything.
That's right.
They're greedy and they're exploratory.
Right. They take risks,
Gladly.
as you have done all your life.
Gladly.
Revelation. My grandfather once saw a black snake in the act of swallowing a frog. Quick as lightning, grandfather fetched the axe, smote that snake like thunder. The frog sprang out and sprang away across the meadow. Likely to start a new religion, grandfather said. You never saw a frog leap so high.
Visit our website for more information about a good read and the writers featured in this series, including a transcript of the interviews, biographies of each of the authors, a complete list of their published works, some tips on how to find those books, what's on their own must-read book list, and more.
Production of A Good Read on Maine PBS is made possible in part by the Davis Family Foundation.